Look how wildly successful he was. But here's why. There's a concept that he understood that very few people focused on back then in the early 90s of signal-to-noise ratio. What was so brilliant about Jobs that I tell every CEO now, and I don't care if you're an S&P 500 CEO or you're just starting a business, his vision of signal was the top 3 to 5 things you have to get done in the next 18 hours. Not your vision for the business next week or next month or next year, just the next 18 hours you're awake. You're going to get those 3 things or those 5 things done that you have deemed critical for your mission. They must get done today. Anything that stops you from doing that is the noise. So this signal-to-noise ratio to be successful for Steve Jobs was 80-20. 80 signal, 20 noise.
Few months back, after watching this podcast where Stephen Bartlett invited Kevinoleary as a guest, I got to know about this brilliant theory of Steve Jobs, signal versus noise. Now, when I compare it with my life at that point of time, I set 5 goals for myself and I was moving towards them by doing an activity which takes me toward that. But I was doing that at a relatively slower pace compared to what I was expecting. Do you want to know why? Because I was having a lot of noise in my life, and that used to make me feel irritated. After learning and implementing this signal versus noise theory and seeing the results for last 3 months, I have been seeing that my productivity and my speed towards achieving my goal has increased significantly. And trust me, honestly, last 2 to 3 months has been the most mentally rewarding months of my life. Hello everyone, my name is Ramakrishna and welcome to Fitness to Fulfillment channel. In our today's video, we will understand this theory of Steve Jobs, which is called signal versus noise. And we will understand that how can you apply this in your lives so that you can achieve your goals efficiently. So without any further delay, let's get started. Now let's understand what is signal and what is noise. So signal is an action which takes you towards the goal, while noise is an action which takes you away from the goal. So let's try to understand this by taking an example. So let's take one of my current goals. So one of my current goal is to make 50 YouTube videos by end of the year since I started making the videos, which means that by end of March 2026, I have to complete 50 videos on my channel. Now, what is a signal and what is a noise over here? So let's talk about signals first. Researching about the content, writing the script, shooting the video, editing the video, and finally releasing the video. And on top of that, whatever studies and learnings that I'm going to do to make my videos better are the signals. While what could be a noise? So let's say on one weekend, I had office party on Friday, because of which I'm feeling tired on Saturday and Sunday because I went late to sleep. That is one of the actions. While the other action is, let's say I had some personal problem or professional problem because of which I'm not feeling enough to make a video. Then both of these situations or actions are considered as noise in my life. Sometimes what happens is that few actions are not taking you towards the goal and they are also not taking you away from your goal. Then even in that case as well, that action is still considered as noise. Let's take an example. To get an inspiration to make my YouTube channel better, I thought of watching Mr. Beast's YouTube video. So I just planned to watch one YouTube video to get an inspiration. I went on his channel, I started watching one video, then YouTube fed me more videos and then I started watching more videos. And ultimately what happened is that I spent more time on Mr. Beast's channels and videos than I was planned to be. So this action of mine to get an inspiration turned from signal to noise because it took the most important ingredient of my life, which is my precious time. Now, after understanding what is signal and noise, let's talk about the most important factor in case of signal versus noise, which is the signal versus noise ratio. Your aim has to be to keep that signal versus noise ratio as high as possible. So according to Kevinoleary, Steve Jobs, which was one of the successful person in the world, had signal versus noise ratio as 80-20, which means that 80% of his actions were signals, where 20% of his actions were noise. Your aim should also be to keep it 80-20. Now, how can you define the 80-20 signal versus noise ratio? To do that, let's understand Steve Jobs' wake time logic. So what Steve says is that you have roughly 16 to 18 hours of wake time during the day. And in that, you have to understand that how much time do you allocate to your signals versus how much time do you allocate to your noise. Now most people here would say that I allocate roughly 2 to 3 hours to my signals, and that is a really bad ratio. So then your aim here should be to increase the time spent on signal, which will automatically reduce the time spent on noise. While in my case, to keep it more flexible, instead of a day, I define my signal versus noise ratio for a week. So let me give my example. Currently, I have 5 goals in my life. So I allocate time precisely for each goal on a weekly basis. For example, for my High Rocks goal, I always give 1 to 2 hours in a week except Tuesday. While for my YouTube channel goal, I usually give my complete weekends and also a morning time on Tuesday. Okay, so firstly understand that you can't achieve 80-20 signal to noise ratio immediately. It will take time. Even if you plan well and you try to execute well, but there will always be noise at the beginning, which is going to hamper achieving that much ratio. Even right now, in my life, I have this signal versus noise ratio as 70-30, where 30% of the things are still noise. For example, scrolling the reels in YouTube or Instagram, or watching the videos which are not relevant for my goals, or maybe talking to my friends on call or talking to my roommate endlessly. But you should always aim for it. So here is my 5-step formula to implement this 80-20 signal versus noise ratio in your life. Step number 1, define your goal. Here, it should be one-liner, no fluffs, no paragraphs, just what you want to achieve and write it down on a paper. Number 2 is find out those 3 to 5 things which are signal for your goal. For example, in my YouTube channel's case, signal for my goal is researching, then writing the script, then shooting the video, then editing the video, and also learning about my YouTube channel. Third step is find out which are those 3 to 5 things which are noise for your goal. For example, in this goal, my noise are watching the reels which are not relevant, watching those videos on YouTube which are not relevant, going for the outings with my friends or with my colleagues, and sometimes even sitting at one place and overthinking about life or what things are going to happen in future. All those are noise. Now step number 4 is that track your signal versus noise ratio for a whole week. So first time when I learned this concept and I tracked my signal versus noise ratio for a week, I got to know that my signal versus noise ratio was 60-40. Huge portion of my actions are still noise, which means I was doing scrolling, I was watching those Mr. Beast videos which are not relevant for me, or I was saying yes to a lot of the outings which my friends or my colleagues were inviting me for. And step number 5, which is the most important step, which is to improve this ratio. Your aim should be to improve this ratio. And how can you do that? Simple, by cutting the noise. But how can you practically cut the noise? So here are some of my tricks that I used in case of the noise that I was having for my YouTube channel goal. First one is that I put a blocker on my home feed where it was not showing me any home feed when I go to YouTube on my computer. Secondly, I also put a timer on using the YouTube. So whenever I used to pass the timer of 10 minutes, it used to block me. So at least that's kind of a blocker. Number 3, I started saying no to those outings as much as possible, or I used to go, but then after completing my video creation part. And in conclusion, I want to say practically you won't achieve 80-20 signal versus noise ratio immediately. But if you let those noises stay in your life, then you will never achieve it. And trust me guys, it felt so good when I improved my signal versus noise ratio by 10% from being 60-40 to 70-30 in 3 months. And that's it from today's video. Please let me know in the comment box how much is your current signal versus noise ratio and what is your next target on this ratio. And also, please share this video with one such person that you know who has low signal versus noise ratio. And please hit the like button if you like this video. And please also hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so. And in future, if you achieve 80-20 signal versus noise ratio, then you have a next target, which is 90-10 signal versus noise ratio, which has been achieved by one person. And Kevinoleary has also mentioned his name in the podcast. So please let me know that name in the comment box. Thank you so much for today. I will see you in the next video. Until then, stay healthy and live a fulfilling life. Thank you.